Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Golden Feather Tavern. I am the Archwizard Steven, and I am here to walk you through the glorious world of Verra and answer any questions you may have.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Golden Feather Tavern. We are your hosts, Chibi and Vertec, and as always, we invite you to pull up a chair, grab a pint, and join the conversation with us. A very special conversation in store for you today. The one and only glorious Sandal Lord's second appearance at our humble establishment.
Woo!
This being the 12th of September, 2025, and the Traveling Bard joining us today is none other than the illustrious Grandmaster, Archwizard of the Craft, Steven Sharif. How are you today, sir?
I am good. It has been quite a while since I have visited the tavern. How long ago was that?
Wow.
Well, it was at least in 2019 because that's when we moved over to being the Golden Feather. And then when we entered into our 10th episode is when you came onto our show for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
He doesn't have a tankard like we do, but he does have a wonderful Cyclops
I love
mug.
that thing.
I actually killed
It's a
Timok,
mug.
and I took his head, carved out the interior, which there wasn't much in it, and made space for the liquid.
Literally drinking out of the skull of his enemy. You see that? I love it.
Yeah.
I love
That
it.
is right. Yes, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that I loved my first experience at the tavern. Of course, the food, the drink, and the company was great, and I'm happy to be back with you guys. Always love the conversation you have, the theory crafting, and the community, the positive vibes that are here as well. I know that, you know, as I watch from afar, and you have your shows, that everyone enjoys it, and I think that's, you know, such an awesome part of what it means to be both a content creator but also a player within the genre, and I'm glad that you guys are doing this on a regular basis. So kudos to you for the great atmosphere that you guys create.
Thank you. That means
absolutely.
a lot.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of atmosphere we aim for. So.
Yeah, absolutely. A very welcoming
Phantom
one.
X, thank you so much.
Yes. Cheers. Thank you, Phantom X. Huzzah.
You're a hero and a scholar.
Phantom MX is here.
Phantom X is here.
The legendary Phantom X.
The legendary.
And huzzah to Chaffee too. Thank you.
Chaffee, thank you. So what do we have on tap today, though, Chibi?
Well, today we have Steven on for a very special interview. As we always do with all of our guests, we wanted to ask him some of our own burning questions. But before we get to some that we've collected from the community, we have some kind of getting to know the Steven questions.
Sure.
So we have our Meet the Bard segment, which is the first little bit, about 10 or 15 minutes. So since you're Steven, we have Meet the Steven.
I actually did class change quest from Bard to Archwizard, so I apologize.
Well,
right, I'll get those turned down.
In this establishment, we like to call bards just the wandering storytellers in the typical sense of a bard.
Yeah, no, totally, absolutely. I am an adept storyteller. I do love telling a lot of stories. So
Yes.
happy to take on that moniker.
Very, very. All right. While Vertec gets the audio fixed over there with the alerts, thank you guys. Sorry, we're not really used to so much at once, so thank you.
Yeah, and just as a statement ahead of time, so trying to be respectful of Steven's time, we're probably not going to be vocally responding to everything, but we will cheers every single alert that comes to us.
Yes. I will just quietly cheers. Vertec, do you want to start? This is your question first.
Yeah, let me go ahead and get this put in here. So, Sir Steven,
Yes.
what inspired you to create a homebrew for Ashes of Creation rather than just homebrewing an adventure in an already established world with existing lore and characters?
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good question. Why did I? Well, I think that the original homebrew, I assume you're talking about in Pathfinder from an RPG perspective.
Yeah.
So, very originally, back in like 2000 and I don't know, 8 maybe 2007, I think it was. I participated in a Warhammer Fantasy campaign that was like this big, map board where you would, there's a game store called Game Empire in San Diego. Played a lot of Warhammer there. Played some Magic there. Played a little bit of D&D and some Pathfinder. And I got invited to this campaign for Warhammer Fantasy. And you'd have these weekly games against your opponent, but in the off week, you would send your commands to your armies, where they would move, what cities they would try to take, what relics they would try to find. That would give you points that you could then purchase additional pieces and whatever, right? And I got inspired by the world building that GM had kind of done to deviate a bit from the Warhammer lore and fantasy. And so when I had my home group for Pathfinder, we were getting a little bit fatigued with the standard kind of cities and continents and factions and just the standard story in Pathfinder. There's a lot of great stories, love them, like Rise of the Rune Lords, or there's a lot of great campaigns that we ran through. And so I wanted to try my hand at creating something a bit more bespoke that had a unique narrative to it. And I started with the first ever town that was created in Ashes of Creation's universe on Verra. At the time, it wasn't called Verra; it was called something else, but it was called Marrowsmead, the town of Marrowsmead. And this was like a launching point for the players to go out and discover the wasted ruins of the second continent of Vandagar. That's, just started world building off of that. So what inspired me ultimately was I participated in this Warhammer Fantasy campaign where they deviated from Warhammer. I thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to deviate from Pathfinder's traditional RPG, and I started to create the Ashes of Creation lore, Verra, the universe. And I was super inspired by, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and I really loved DS9. Deep Space Nine had a really interesting overarching narrative that was kind of unique to the Star Trek space at the time. TNG was a very episodic based series, and DS9 integrated this more meta narrative to the story. And there's a lot of elements, if you look at the lore in Ashes of Creation, that actually relate to some concept in DS9 to a degree, right, as inspiration. So those of you who are Star Trek nerds, if you start thinking about that, you might find some interesting little Easter eggs there. But that's what seeded some of the conflict on the world of Verra, some of the background elements of the overarching lore and world building. So I see some people saying Star Wars is better. That's not true, Z. Star Wars is just different. Just different. Yeah.
And also there was a question about if that was something that was in one of the extra lives, the early extra lives, because Z says I feel like they started an extra life in Marrowsmead at one point.
Oh yeah, we might have. I mean, I have an entire bookcase that is filled with miniatures and props from the Ashes campaigns, all of my books and lore writing that are there, a lot of the concepts for unique items that the players had. And whenever we play now in Pathfinder, we usually play in the Ashes of Creation universe, although I haven't played in quite some time.
I feel like it's appropriate to ask this question at this time, Vertex. I'm going to kind of override the thing here.
Okay.
Since we're on the topic of Extra Life, we've been asked a couple of times, will Intrepid Studios be doing Extra Life this year?
We will either be doing Extra Life or we will be doing another charity sometime, I would say, in the November or December timeframe. So I've been dealing actually with some issues with my eyes, unfortunately. And the team that has been working with me on my eyes also does a charitable engagement. We're trying to see if we can get them into Extra Life. Right now, we're working with Extra Life to determine if that's possible. If not, we'll go a separate route. But they're at Jacobs Retina Center. They're here at UCSD Health and the Shiley Eye Institute. So we want to do something with them this year, and we're working out some plans to have our videographer crew go down and do some interviews and talk about the great work that they're doing there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
All right. I'll be honest. I was totally expecting a sorry, we're way too busy with the office stuff.
We are very busy, but I do feel very compelled to help participate in the research and the work that they're doing at both Jacobs Retina Eye Center as well as the Shiley Eye Institute.
Well, that's really awesome.
All right. Well, I'll just go ahead and paste that in there just so it pops up on the screen for a quick second. Yeah, there's going to be something. That's awesome.
So, all right. you want me to go ahead and ask the next one, or do you want to
Yeah,
go
you
back
grab the
to
next
it?
one. I'll get it posted
Okay.
up in the window.
Okay, so some of you in chat are asking if we have the questions open already. We had all of these open previously, but we always have a spot for questions for Steven, because you never know.
You never know.
So Kaisuke asks, what is the defining moment in your life?
Oh, what is a defining moment? Gosh, there are so many. I mean, you know, life for all of us, life has its ebb and flow, right? And there are high moments and there are low moments. For me, obviously, the high moments are starting Intrepid, getting to see the face of players when we went to PAXs, watching the fruition of many years come to be when players finally have access to the game. And, now we're in this process of refining, iterating, and balancing and stabilizing. But that whole journey has been, very defining for me. I walked into this industry entirely as a player. And within a very short period of time, I had a significant crash course when it came to, what does it mean to run a studio? What does it mean to run a project? What does it mean to design an MMORPG? And I had the opportunity, of course, to learn from greats, from veterans who have built, a lot of the tried, tested, and true loves franchises that I have loved. And to work with them has been a significant highlight. Lows, John and I lost our baby girls, our Silas and Riley, back after the pandemic, and we were very close with our puppies, and they were, both 15 years roughly of age, and that was a very defining moment, I feel, for me from an emotional standpoint, right? Like, prior to that, as an individual, I wasn't usually more logic driven, usually more, analytical when it comes to things. And now sometimes I'll watch a show that's a comedy, and for out of nowhere, I'll cry. I'll be like, why am I crying here? It's like, I'm still emotionally raw from that event. So, there are moments and times where bigger impacts can occur, and going through this journey has been big, both with the community and with the team. And the recent events that we experienced with the pandemic and the loss of our girls, I think, was very impactful as well. Those are the two that kind of come to mind for me recently.
Yeah, that's fair. And we missed her too. She was so cute. You had her in some of the extra life, so that was a sad moment. Well, this is what two people in our community wants to know is, where is the merch store, Steven? And also, can you maybe work with Displate to create a poster portraying the map of Verra?
We are still working on the merch stuff. I mean, obviously, we had some interesting shenanigans happening recently with the whole tariff, stuff going on, and that put a little bit of a snag on some things, but I think, we're going to be making some more forward progress there, and we should be able to see something come of that within the next several months, I would say. But, we'll keep you updated on the live streams when that's going to be expected, and, what the items will be. And for those of you who love to participate in merch, of course, that is something that we are working towards.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fair enough. All right. So on the next question, Tanguru asks, is all of this just Steven living out a dungeon master's fantasy?
Ooh.
Literally creating your own world?
Isn't that kind of true for just life in general? I mean, if you look at the comparative between, us walking through life, making decisions, I mean, really, you're just rolling a d20 at every turn. But from a dungeon master perspective, yeah, I mean, I guess there's a lot of correlation there, right? I mean, you're building a virtual world in a similar sense to how you might build a tabletop pen and paper type of world, right? You have these narratives, you're trying to define this compelling player path and arc that you want your players to kind of go through, incorporating interests for them individually, but it's that times like 1,000. Because there's all the corresponding, systems integration, the software development, the testing components. Like, if you think about it purely from a story perspective, it's very similar to being a GM. right? You're defining a player path. You're thinking of user stories, right? You're trying to hit class fantasies. You're trying to hit, points of interest fantasies, and you're trying to deliver that through a narrative structure, but also with this visual component. But then if you look at it from the software development side, I mean, there's just this, huge aspect of it that is nothing at all similar to being a DM. But I will say that, having the experience as a DM, if I were to evaluate a developer, who is applying to work at Intrepid, and I were to see a checkbox with, how many games have you run as a GM? I'd look at that as a big positive, because there's a lot of thinking that goes into how do I create a compelling player experience when you're a GM? Like that, I mean, that ultimately is your job. You're the narrator, you're the experience giver. And from a creative direction standpoint, the user's front and center in that regard. And yes, oftentimes I can rely on my experiences as a GM and what storytelling means in that regard to kind of imagine what it looks like to walk a player through the experience that I want them to have.
That's awesome. Also, Penumbra did a 50 donation. Says, stay healthy, Steven. Everything else comes second. So thank you so much, Penumbra.
Cheers,
That's so sweet.
Thank you.
Mom's Socks
Yeah.
asks,
Let's say Mom's Socks.
Yeah. Can you describe your dream dungeon group? Everybody thinks you're either a mage and you just want all mages or all bards. What's your dream dungeon group?
My dream dungeon group. I probably am a person of balance. So, I like being prepared for anything. And in that regard, I would probably, from a composition standpoint, want to have each kind of, class and or archetype represented. From a content, perspective, I like really difficult things. So sometimes I try to punch outside of my class or punch above my, above the height there a little bit. I sometimes, when I game, I push my players or team or friends to do things that seem like we shouldn't try this. If I'm in a game of Dota, I might try to do Roshan a little bit earlier than the team would want. I might try to push high ground earlier than the team might want. I believe I like the reward of being successful at something that people would expect you to fail at. And because of that, I try to push maybe sometimes a little bit too far. So my dream group is well represented with all the classes, and trying to do things that others can't.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it. Good answer. All right, so we're going to move away from our getting to know Steven into some of the questions that Vertec and I have. And then after that, we'll have the more community questions. So, Vertec, I asked the last one. It's your turn.
All right. We're going to put this in here. All right. So,
also, real quick, I didn't know if you did this already, but they were asking if we could mute the notifications because of how many follows. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
sorry.
I've had to remute it because they only pop up after the fact. But
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see. So, yeah, is there a plan for implementing artisan recipe discovery through exploration or experimentation? Be it physically exploring the world to find treasure chest quests or experimenting through various materials that aren't in an available recipe. So finding new recipes that are only available in that manner.
And the manner was through exploration and drops?
Or like experimentation?
Oh, experimentation. Got it, I see.
Yeah, exploration of the world or experimentation with recipes.
So exploration of the world, 100%. Experimentation with recipes, that is something that we had talked about, that you might have alternative material compositions that you could, inflate the number of granite required or wood required above the requested result. And, as a result of that, you might discover an alternative stat comp for the item that you're creating, right? Or some different prefix name that then unlocks like a sub recipe of that recipe. I think that that's still the intent and plan going forward. It's not obviously in yet. But I believe that that's the way that we want to arrive at a physical sword having a magical counterpart version of it, right? Is that you unlock those different types of stat groups and stat blocks based off of what you described as experimentation, specifically with regards to the composition of materials, types, and quantity.
Awesome.
Nice.
Cool.
And potentially even crafting location and or processing location. Like,
Ooh, crafting
that was
location. Okay.
Yeah, that was
I like
incorporated as well. But you know, I mean, the system right now is still very rudimentary. It is something that is on the econs team, you know, as a backlogged item to work towards. I know it's in the GDD, so you know, we'll see when we can get around to getting that in, but it's going to be probably a little while.
I mean, that's fair. You got to get the base system going before you iterate on it too much.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
there have been mentions of multiple. Wait, did you want me to go?
No,
to a different
yeah, go
one?
for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There have been mentions of multiple future expansions. Have you already thought out that far ahead to keep the grand story in mind?
Yes, yeah, we have thought about. I mean, there's a few ways to think about expansions. Obviously, from a storyline perspective, I think we have a pretty good handle of what, you know, the launch story is going to be, what the first update's going to be, and then a little bit thereafter, you know, we have a lot of ideas of arcs that it could go on based on kind of community sentiment, thoughts, direction, how they engage with the storyline. I think can help to inform that, as any good storyteller would want to do. Again, relating back to the DM question, right? As a dungeon master, you could have a super prescriptive, you know, path that you want the players to take, but I think most players in a modern age, you know, they enjoy a bit of divergence that's capable when the DM responds to that divergence by story crafting on the fly. I know from an AI perspective as well, it's been super useful as a tool for DMs to leverage, you know, quick writing and story based off of, you know, the prescript that you've given the AI. So you know, from a storytelling perspective, I think we always want to observe how the player engages with it, what they enjoy about it, and then we allow that to kind of help inform the directions. From a software development standpoint, from a feature development standpoint, you know, there is obviously our acceptance criteria of what we're trying to deliver on for commercial launch entry. And then once we've done that, we have a large kind of backlog of, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could do these things too? And that doesn't necessarily meet the acceptance criteria for launch, but it could then get fit into certain expansion structures, which aren't predefined as of now. It's kind of like a big, you know, amalgamous backlog of shit to do. Pardon my French. But it
We're a
is
multilingual tavern. It's fine.
Yes, good, perfect. It is something then that will come into greater clarity as we get through more of phase 3 and understand, you know, what systems really are necessary to keep the loops humming and shining well from a player engagement and user story perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sorry. Thank you so much, Watch Misfit. 100 gifted sub. Holy crap.
Oh, serious?
Whoa.
Wow.
Holy mackerel.
Good
Cheers.
gosh.
Okay,
Oh my
that
God.
one. Cheers to that. Thank you.
Yes, cheers. This
Thank
is
you so
water,
much.
but I will take an extra sip.
That's okay. Mine's coffee. My branchlers people are asking if they're trying to jump away. Yes, I haven't gotten the DLC yet for the branchlers to stay in place. They're in alpha testing at the moment.
Nice. Some bugs. Got to work out some of
There's
those
some
bugs.
bugs with them. Yeah.
We haven't picked up the right staples just yet.
Yeah, not quite yet. We'll get there. Okay. That's really awesome though. Thank you for sharing that. Vertec.
Right. So here is a question you've previously touched on in the past, but there is still some worry in the general Ashes community that Intrepid does not have a solid direction decision and is taking proverbial stabs in the dark at solving econ issues. Can you please elaborate on what you're hoping to accomplish with the hiring of a principal designer, the principal econ designer? Like what
So
their role will be,
kinda-
if they're more a decision maker or worker bee?
Well, kind of I would split that up into two different questions.
Okay.
So the first question is like, what are we trying to achieve with our economy iteration right now? You know, I think I spoke about this a little bit on not August, but I believe it was the July live stream update. And I'll kind of speak to the vision and or, you know, the direction that I've given economy as a whole, as it relates at least to drops and recipes, you know, and kind of the progression of gear acquisition, the reliance on the crafting community. So, we have these grades that exist of gear, right? And those grades are reflective of character level. So, you have your initiate grade, which is respective of level 1 through 10. You have your adept grade, which is respective of level 11 through 20. You have your radiant grade, which is 21 through 30.
Right.
And within those grades, you have tiers of gear sets. And those tiers also loosely reflect balance based on level. So for, let's say, an initiate grade, which is the level 1 through 10 grade, you might have sets of gear for plate, leather, cloth, 3 bespoke sets that exist in the level 1 through 4 range, right? And these sets, they have bonuses and they're considered low tier, which means that as it compares to the sets that exist at the mid tier in that grade or at the high tier in that grade, they're going to have lesser stats. They're going to have not as effective, bonuses that are applied. And these are the types of gear that we want to provide players from a questing perspective, from a drops perspective. There might even be some available on the vendor, and we want to kind of place dependencies on those pieces, right? So the hawks over here might drop the gloves, and the zombies down here might drop the boots, and the griffins over there might drop the breastplate, and then you might need to buy the wrists from a vendor, and you might need to complete the quest, your introductory level 3 quest to get the belt, and the level 5 quest to get the we're accompanying your pieces of candy as you adventure in the game through those systems, right? You walk a little bit, ooh, a piece of candy. You walk a little bit further, ooh, another piece of candy. But where does the cake live? The cake is the mid-tier gear and the high-end gear. And that's where crafters want to focus when they're talking about recipes to achieve, when they're talking about materials to acquire, and what the player base is going to demand from an economy perspective. And those materials should be dropping on monsters, and the recipe should be dropping, and you should have to unlock world progression in order to engage with those systems. So you might need to construct a specific building to get access to the craftable station for the mid and or high tier items. So in that sense, what we do is we create a dichotomy. We create the dichotomy between what the normal adventuring player who doesn't engage with the crafting system can still find the pieces of candy as they move through the game, but they're required to engage with the crafting community who makes the best shit in order to gain access to the mid-tier and high-tier stuff. And that crafting community is then reliant on the adventuring community to supply the materials, or themselves, if they participate in that, to supply the materials and the recipes. And they orchestrate the trade between the nodes and the construction locations in order to prop up the buildings that are required as predicates to access the stations to complete the craft. Like, ultimately, that's the type of synergy that we're looking to create. Now, what's happened, as happens through implementation, obviously we can miss the mark on some of that, intent and directive, and that's where iteration occurs, right? We stop, we inspect, we test. That's what this process is. We're inspecting, we're testing. We touched a lot of recipes, and I'll touch on the other side of that, the recipes. Recipes are a balance. They're a balance between what is our base unit from an econ perspective of time to find, right? What is our spawn rate, spawn radiuses, spawn quantities for these resources and materials that exist in the wild? And how long does it take our average gatherer to find those things? And what is the breakdown of materials that they gather based off of their rarity and quantity? And then based on those base integers, we derive what the total value requirement is for a recipe in order to manifest the completed item. Now, those base units, those base calculations of time to find are highly predicated on what we test with the community. And when those new figures come back, we go back and we refine and we change the quantities based off of those. Now, ultimately, from a grand vision perspective, what are we trying to achieve pacing wise for the crafting of these mid and high tier gears? Well, that scales over time. The earlier in the level range you are in progression, it should be faster to create those things because you want to keep it relevant to the time frame in which you exist within those levels, right? By the time I reach level 10, I should have the capability of achieving X percentage of medium type gear or high type gear, right? What percentage of the player population should have high-end gear? 10 to 20%. Right. What percentage of the population should have the mid-tier gear? Maybe 20 to 30 or 40%. And then the bottom percent is generally at the low-end right gear. So we kind of create those expectations, that design philosophy on the economy side, and then we say, okay, go. We're going to take steps and we're going to reflect. Now, the other side of your question is we're looking for a principal economy designer. Absolutely.
Right.
We have a great economy team right now. We've done some restructuring on the economy side to fold them into the systems team that's now going to be headed by both Chris Justo and Rhett, who are our two systems leads. And they're going to be, obviously collecting data on the current phase 3 launch of the economy systems and iterating as they already are right now. I think there's going to be some changes to the econ stuff that's the recipe stuff that's broken right now with the journeyman recipe crafting. That is coming either today or tomorrow, maybe Monday, I'm not sure, but that should fix some of the recipes. For a principal economy designer, what we look for is someone who really understands an MMORPG's economy, especially one that is as interconnected and predicate driven that a game like Ashes of Creation is. And that individual is expected to participate in defining the highline goals for this system and for coordinating how those goals service the narrative team, the systems team, because ultimately econ is what drives human behavior within the game. And there needs to be a compelling both integration and reward profile that players can look towards in order to want to do the content that they're expected to do in order to progress their character and their power levels. And then that needs to be synergized, of course, with the PC side and how mob progression, stat progression, and these kind of soft or hard gates might exist around the encounter designs that compel the player community to achieve certain gear score values in order to complete and accomplish content. I know that was a huge answer.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was a meaty question.
I apologize for that, but hopefully that gives you good insight.
Yeah.
No worries.
Go ahead for a sec, sorry.
Oh, okay, I was just going to say, I think a lot of that was kind of what people were looking for. So
yeah.
by all means.
I also wanted to tack on to that, like the other part of that reason for the question is, at least as a crafter myself with doing artisan stuff primarily, the tier 1 novice gear feels like there's a really high buy-in just to get the gear. And Correct. It's still at that point of like, oh man, I'm level 10 before I actually get the gear even for this gear level. Yep. So I just wanted to like put out there that like, I think you guys are still working on finding that balance.
We are very aware of that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We're very aware of that. That is currently the focus of our balance and iteration efforts right now, is to correct the ship on, the quantities, the spawn rates, the recipe requirements, like all of those things is a balance game that we're focused on right now, trying to improve.
Okay, cool. Because one thing I had said previously before the big econ change is that, it should be easy for us to get initiate gear, at least tier 1, according to the new system. So that way we're getting our gear, we're getting out there, things like that.
Absolutely.
So I love that. Thank you. All right. So is there anything that the team has added to your vision of a certain event or feature that has caught you totally by surprise and made you more excited for that event or feature to be completed?
Well, I think I find myself experiencing that in many of our features that we work on. Like if I think about right now what we're working towards in November, I think the corruption events, these tendril sections that grow into the world and create this kind of more PvX driven environment and objective with the harbingers, that's going to be super exciting to see.
Yeah.
I think that the sports fishing that we're doing as a revamp for fishing overall, players are going to be super excited to experience.
Can't wait to see what the sports fishing is all about myself.
Oh my goodness. I've been watching
open sea fishing.
Yes, the open sea fishing. Absolutely. So I've been watching the character team complete the crates for the fish that you catch in the sports fishing. And they're pretty cool. They got some physics on the pieces of the fish that are just kind of hanging off the crate and they look so good. I can't wait to see people walking around with those. It's going to be pretty awesome. Yeah, those two things I'm pretty excited about. Of course, the summoner as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay.
Good question.
And then back to something a little bit more meaty, potentially divisive. And this one is with the heavy focus on PvP and economy being both risk, reward, and end goal thus far. Are there any plans to make PvE be the ever-dreaded risk balanced against the desired reward, rather than just something you do because it's on the way to what you want to do?
So give me an example of what that question might mean from a PvE risk perspective.
So let's say there's a stat that's tracked, and people have one player has looted more other players than he has been looted himself. After it gets too far in a certain direction, say a very powerful and angry tricksy spirit appears and fights him. If the player loses, all the stuff that hits the ground, which it could be an increased drop rate from just the normal like 50% it's sitting at right now, and that NPC grabs it all and runs away. But it'll only appear when they have like full bags full of stuff, like at a critical moment to get all the materials back to town.
So we have some systems that are intended to provide a PvE risk, right? We have atrophy events, which respond to nodes that aren't perhaps keeping up with the level of settlement experience acquired over time. And that creates kind of a PvE response where monsters can be summoned, have target objectives within the settlement to disable buildings, and players are expected to respond to those things. So we have incorporated those types of elements from a PvE perspective. Additionally, with the Harbingers, right, that's a PvX design, but ultimately the end state of removing those corruption zones is going to be based on whether or not players can complete the PvE objectives. And so, there is a PvE risk there that is introduced. I would say that one of the difficulties when it comes to, risk profile and PvE engagements is that we are an open world and we don't intend to incorporate very many instanced types of content. And as a result of that, you can't really always predict the numbers of players that can be brought to a PvE gate. And as a result of that, we have to try to lean into the PvX design of ensuring that there is properly represented PvP components that can interfere with the PvE objectives. So we need to have the PvE objectives. Those are risky. And then the PvP side of things also introduce an element of competitiveness that is player-centric and can accommodate this imbalance that can exist in PvE where, I have this prescriptive number of NPCs and or types of behavior trees, and I can bring overwhelming odds as players to that event. Well, if I can do that, but on the flip side, there's also another group that can do the same, right? That scales well. And we have some systems that are intended to also scale PvE threats, right? Like we do have the intent to introduce dynamic, behavior trees that respond to the quantity of players and or to the pacing that they might, be killing things at to increase difficulty or create dynamic difficulty. But to answer your question succinctly, yes, we do want to incorporate PvE events as risk. Atrophy events are a good example of that against settlements, and we will try to find additional places, especially the open seas, where that could be a thing as well.
Okay,
awesome.
Cool. Because there's this kind of a sentiment in the general community, and especially in the tavern here, that PvE has been a heavy focus, and there's been many ways that PvP has been influential in adding some stressors to the PvE events and activities, and a lot of question on PvE being able to do the same in reverse, like. Let's say PvE players are able to run around the world and gather all the scattered pieces of the Orb of Exodia. And with that, they can take a raid boss and they can port it directly into the middle of an instance PvP arena.
Totally.
And interrupt the PvP arena. And they're like organized events that they're trying to take care of. Lala zones being canceled out by the same kind of thing. That way PvE players can reclaim their area.
Yes, and the Harbingers do present literally that example that you just provided, right? There are ways that the PvE players engage with objectives in order to remove the corruption zone, which removes the lawless nature of it. So that is directly incorporated as part of the Harbinger's design. And then I would say another thing about the preceding example that you gave there is that gosh, I had a response to that one. What was the example you gave before the zone? The spawning, the finding the things and spawning stuff. So relics tie in. Yeah, relics tie in really well to that concept as well. You know, we talked always in the past about how finding a relic might unlock a dungeon or spawn a boss that might disrupt trade, or, you know, cause it to always be winter, which then affects the, you know, harvestables within the area or something along those lines. That's still the intent of our systems. We are building the technologies in order to accommodate that from both a population service and spawning service perspective, as well as our event systems and narrative systems that are predicate based. They revolve around being able to change the paradigm of what spawns from a PvE perspective, and then elicits the response from the players in order to successfully achieve and or accomplish those things.
Okay, that's really awesome to hear, because like the concern that we had as primarily more PvE focused players, we like the PvP systems, we like engaging in them when we're wanting to, but with the current like rotating lawless zones that pop up, you have like these high levels that come in and just nuke all the people that are just trying to level, and it becomes very frustrating for the PvEer. So thank you so much. That was why we wanted to ask that question. So we have, this section is all of your guys' questions that were submitted and voted on within our Discord. And I do see you guys putting up the questions. I appreciate it. I apologize. We like to try to not necessarily vet them, but give Intrepid our questions ahead of time. So we had a deadline. I apologize, y'all. But Soldierin asks, in reference to taverns, how many maintenance activities and ambient features are planned? For example, muddy shoes when it's raining outside, things like that.
And this is for taverns?
Yeah.
For taverns.
And we're just talking about like you know, cosmetic elements that sell the kind of RP nature of the environment.
Or even adding tasks for the tavern keeper to keep up with, or shopkeeper, like they got to go like swab the floor down or like clean up empty mugs or stuff like that. Yeah,
I think that from a narrative perspective, you know, that is the proper theming, that you will have objectives that usually incorporate some interactable, you know, objective that you have to do. So in the example that you gave around a tavern owner that needs to, you know, wash the floors every now and then, or based off of the number of purchases that might get made by the vendor, could serve as the predicate for the repeated nature of that event, or of that narrative arc for players. We definitely want to dive into that component of the narrative design, and that's not just within the tavern environment. You know, that's across being a good citizen, or across, you know, being a trader, or, you know, those types of things. I think will be very thematically placed within the world environment, and have interesting interactions that players can perform that sell that immersion and or that RP. And then on the kind of, you know, visual storytelling that you described with the muddy boots, you know, walking into the tavern or something along those lines. You know, that is definitely a level of polish that ultimately we want to see in Ashes. Something that probably won't come until much later. Like, we can achieve the wiping the floors without actually having the muddy boots be displayed. You know what I mean? Like, we could base that predicate off of, like, as I said, you know, number of purchases from the vendor, right? Okay, well, you've had 100 foot traffic. Every 100 foot traffic you have, the, you know, narrative becomes available for the shopkeep to wipe the floors, essentially. And we wouldn't have to show that, you know, visual polish from a muddy shoe perspective, but we definitely want to. The VFX artists and the you know, the environment artists, like, you know, that is obviously their lifeblood. They want to do those types of things, and the more of that we can do, the more immersive it's going to be, of course. So yeah, there's a desire for us to identify where we can do that. You know, what's going to get the best bang for buck, and can be kind of reused in a modular fashion across the world to, you know, sell the types of interactions and gameplay that we want players to engage with.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Somebody said clean store equals 2% tax reduction.
There you go. I like it.
All right, Vertec, your turn.
So on the next one, Pocket asks, how much has the community presented information that is in line with your vision, influenced any decisions into a specific direction?
I'm sorry, you cut out there for me for just a second. Could you repeat that question?
Yes, Pockets Art asks, how much has community presented information that is in line with the vision had an influence on any of your decisions into any specific direction?
So community as in the community team, or the
Our community
our
as players.
Okay, so just
Yeah.
talking about players, like the feedback that you guys have given.
Yeah, like presenting
Um,
ideas and whatnot. Like, how many of those have influenced the direction of
I think a lot.
the design?
I mean, personally, I think a lot, and the way I can say that is because, you know, we have meetings that get scheduled with feature teams, and you know, the community team schedule those meetings, and they provide reports based off of our community discussion threads that we post on a normal basis, on a monthly basis, that the community engages with, and we go through like all the highlighted kind of feedback points within that hour, sometimes 2 hours, depending on what the topic might be and what an additional level of discussion is. And we actually record those meetings. So we record every meeting, but the cool thing is that when we ship this game, it's going to be really cool, I think, to look back and give some insight into some of the discussions and how some of the features came to be. And you will see in many of those community discussions, we take ideas that players give us and we run with them, or we adapt, the design intent behind a particular feature in order to accommodate a really cool idea that we heard from the community on it, or we refine the experience because it's not fun, both off of our playtesting, but also what players are giving us as their playtesting feedback. I mean, that is the strength of the open nature. The downside of the open nature is that, not everybody understands what being in an alpha means. Not everybody understands what creating a game of this magnitude, size, and complexity entails. Not everybody understands the journey that we as a studio have taken from our very humble, small, independent beginnings to, now being a very large team of 250 some odd people working on, a massive project. So, because there's such a disparity that can exist between the most informed community member and the least informed community member,
Right.
Sometimes it might be a perception that, we either don't take, into account this feedback, or we do incorporate it. And what I would just say is that, like, I would not put myself or the team through this open development process if the benefit wasn't worth it. And the benefit is literally the crux of your question, which is that we get to see the feedback in real time of the systems we're creating from the community, and we get to adjust based off of that.
Yeah.
That is the strength of the approach. It has its downsides, but that is the strength.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to follow up on that, there was another question. It was in a different order, but just because it follows up so perfectly, I'm going to reorder it up here. And this question was from, and I'm still not sure how it's supposed to be pronounced, Eden. Eden asks, how do you think community involvement is comparing what you hoped for and what it currently is? Is there anything in the involvement that surprised you, either positive or negative?
Idun, sorry.
Idun.
That's a good question.
Idun,
That's a
okay.
good question. I mean, I've talked about this in the past. I think that it takes a very tough skin to do anything this open, because the truth and the reality is that you can communicate a lot, and it doesn't guarantee that you will help form the proper expectation. And expectation is something that is very subjective to the perspective of the individual, right? Their level of engagement. We just talked about from the most informed to the least informed. Like, everywhere along that spectrum is going to have a different voice, opinion, and thought or perspective on how we're doing what we're doing. Right. And sometimes, as a result of our, unique viewpoints, we can't understand the other side's perspective. And as a result, sometimes we don't give the other side a benefit of the doubt. And that can manifest itself in a little bit of impatience. It can go very extreme, and it can manifest itself in, very accusatorial or negative, ways. It can burn out into this massive implosion, in a throwaway. It's all almost a psychological profile, right? It's like, how do you handle disappointment? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm involved in an alpha and it's not what I wanted it to be, do I try to understand that? Do I try to introspect on that? Do I get upset about that? How do I manifest the being upset about it part? That's the bundle that this choice of transparent development process incorporates. That's what we are here to manage and to engage with and to, spend time, effort, and resources on, ensuring that we can walk that through properly, because the end result is the outcome we're after, which is a better product that players want, and not showing up on launch day with something people don't want, and then having to change a lot of things. So that's the profile. Is it am I surprised by it? No, I don't think so. I think for a long time we've always communicated, look, this transparency is gonna be double-edged. We're never gonna be perfect. It's literally an impossible goal. We will try to be good enough. We will do our best to achieve that. And we will do so informing you of things along the way. And I think that I'm a very principled individual who wants to stick to those goals. And as a result of that, there's going to be an ebb and flow to this process. There's going to be excitement at the start of Alpha 1. Everybody was so excited. And then as the testing reality set in, things were like, well, wait a minute, why aren't all these bugs getting fixed in time? Well, it's because we're managing the bug fixing as a live ops, and we're managing, the outstanding feature development and content development with the same team, right? And that's a difficult task that not a lot, and we're also doing it while in the open and publicly non-NDA'd kind of playable game.
As a team that's not really worked on other projects before, so learning each other's rhythm and all that stuff all at once.
Right, and while we have a lot of, and specifically together, while we have a lot of veterans who've built many of these massive franchises and games in the past, yes, we are a new team, and we already have our bumps and bruises on certain things. So what I would say is this, to kind of boil it down. I think ultimately what I've always said is that, look, at the end of the day, the product will speak for itself. Everything in between, the vast majority of players will either not care about, reflect on, or will be front and center to their mind when the opportunity to play Ashes of Creation at launch appears. When that happens and Ashes of Creation has the launch date and it's ready to go and people can see what the product looks like and they, understand what they're getting into, I think at that point, like, all of this will be noise that really won't matter.
Yeah.
To them. To us and how we got there, it's everything. To them, cool. What do I buy? I'll try it out. Let's go. That's my perspective on it. And so in that regard, I'll keep putting up with the punches. The team will put up with the punches when we have to. We'll go with the ebb when we have the positive, things that happen. And ultimately, our objective remains the same. We need to ship this product, and we need to ship it to the design that both the feedback commands and our original intent and goals require.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So we do realize that we have about 10 minutes left in our interview.
Well, we can go over a little bit. We can go over a little bit. I'm cool with sticking around. If you want to,
That'd be so awesome. I would love that. We have so many questions.
There are so many good questions in here.
I'm down. We can throw another 30 minutes on the clock.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Cheers to you, Steven.
Yes.
And thank you. Meps, I know you're here. If you can just let production know that if there's a meeting I'm in after this, to push it by 30 minutes.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, so we'll get through a couple more, and then we'll do our speed round that we have planned.
Yeah.
Which Chad's trying to push for 3 to 4 hours more.
3 to 4 hours.
Okay, so Tobias, Chris, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say this last name. Was wondering if you had any plans to allow us to maybe use custom icons for ranks in the guild, or if we could maybe have some that are related to professions. For example, farmer role having hoes, pitchfork, scythes, etc.
So this is about whether or not we can assign custom icons within guild ranks.
Yes. Or if we could, yeah, perfect.
Or at least
Yeah,
have some created in game that are artisan profession related.
Yeah.
I don't know if we intend to do, and are you talking about icons that would appear on the player nameplate externally to non-guild members, or just within the guild roster?
Within the guild UI.
Okay.
I think it's within the guild UI, yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's something I think I would chat with UI about, their grand design for that. I'm not sure, you know, if that would start to look a little busy from a UI perspective, if you're, you know, depending on the number of custom ranks and custom images that you would have as a result of that, you know, it might look a little strange. Now, with that being said, we could have a number of pre-authored insignia that could be then assigned based off of the guild and rank association. I think that would probably be a better approach than the custom image assignment. But we do intend to allow some custom images when it comes to the nameplate UI and or insignia on ships. I know that that's a plan, but won't be delivered on until later, obviously.
That's fair. Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So this one is from Pockets, aka Pockets Art. He asks, and oh man, just so you know, you don't have to have any favoritism on this one for us being on the show and everything, but he's asking which content creators that you've paid attention to have had most on-point theory crafting into the vision of Ashes of Creation.
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Putting you in the real hot seat on that one.
I think that Doctor at the Copium Clinic has had some really good theory crafting. I think that Nice has had some great theory crafting. I think that Dusty has some really funny, interesting theory crafting. Maybe not as quite on target, but is definitely funny to listen to. I have heard some really wacky conspiracy ideas from some content creators that I will not name. And then, you know, I think from a design perspective, probably, you know, when they were doing their Theory Forge, I really liked, I liked Phantom MX and
Neurotoxin?
We had Neurotoxin
and Diggs.
Diggs. There you go.
Yes,
I think
yes,
Diggs had some interesting ideas.
So I wanted to say them one at a time just so they didn't overlap, and you're like, yeah, that one. Which one?
Yeah. Yeah, Diggs had some fun idea.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry, I lost my place because I went searching. So Basil's asking, how creative will we be able to get with decorating and housing?
The intent is to, you know, give that play space to, you know, to the player, and allow a lot of, you know, expression and creativity there. I know that, you know, obviously furniture placement is a derivative of the deployable systems. So from a deployable systems perspective, we're intending to incorporate a lot of functionality that gives, you know, granular control over height and, you know, the turning of the item when you place it, and some of the stacking rules that are going to come with it, and some of the definitions of, you know, what can be attached where within the home. But, you know, keeping that relatively loose so that the player can come up with some really interesting, wacky, you know, creations. Obviously, I think a more modular approach to those types of settings is conducive to those outcomes. So a lot of, we want to give a lot of creative freedom to house owners to be creative with their furniture. Now, with that being said, when we do eventually get freeholds back up and running again, and we incorporate our in-settlement housing and apartments, which hopefully will be in the milestone or 2 milestones after this upcoming one, the furniture might not have that grand of flexibility just yet in its initial adoption, but might be relatively more simplistic, and then we'll continue to build that out over time.
That's awesome. Okay, because I know like Maggie's mentioned she's played like Animal Crossing and like Sims, and I've played those too, and I love the being able to move things however I'd like and turn it just right, things like that. It's really nice.
Yeah.
More
And
more of a cozy gamer's enjoyment, I think.
I've said this. I've said this in the past, but when I played ArcAge, I would often go AFK in the middle of like Marianople, and people would, kidnap me, and I'd come back to my computer and see that I'd been taken off to somewhere, some house that I couldn't see. One time, I think they took me through a portal, and it was to an island house that they had. And inside the house, there were no doors. And I came back to my computer, and I was inside the house with no doors. And there was a table in front of me. And on the table was a gun. it was so awesome. Nice. It was hilarious. I loved that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
I am Chaffee. I am PvPing these horns. These horns are falling off of me, but that's okay.
Almost there. Just hold on a little bit longer.
Yeah, just a little longer.
But yeah, I know the housing was one of my favorite things about like WildStar. I had a friend that took and made a whole arcade on his property out of finding little bits and pieces of items, and he'd drop them on the ground, resize them, reshape them, and create little arcade cabinets with like portraits found in the world and little glowy bits of gems and such like that. It was actually really, really cool. Really inventive stuff they did.
They also had these white boxes that could be turned into green boxes essentially, and you could create an in-game set with the green boxes and do your recording and casting from in-game character with a green screen essentially.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Really cool. I love that actually. That's awesome.
All right. So we got the next question here from Frosty, who asks, your choice of 2 archetypes in your adventuring class provides augments that impact your playstyle. Are there any plans to include a similar pairing benefit with artisan classes?
Not of yet. We definitely talked about some of those ideas. I mean, the underlying tech could be leveraged from a skill tree perspective as you have your progression within the artisanship tree. You could incorporate essentially modifiers as a result of that. And I think there was some initiative early on when defining what those artisanship skill trees would look like, that they'd be more active-based skills for artisanship. So the underlying tech is built to facilitate that modularly, but it is not something that we have planned.
Okay.
All right. Keo asks, do you plan to add mechanics to throttle progression, or is the design intended to be rush to max level and then play the game?
Definitely the plan is not to rush to max level and then play the game. There are a plethora of mechanics that are incorporated, at least as it relates to soft checkpoints for player pacing.
Yeah.
So, obviously in an MMORPG, you have the sweat lords and you have the casuals, and, somewhere in between is where you try to find your average player. And, regardless of that truth in finding the average player, you need to build systems that accommodate the entirety of that spectrum, right? And so, as a result of that, we use settlement development as a general checkpoint when it relates to like building construction and the services that they offer, the vendors that are available as a result of that, right? Those all are kind of required predicates. Some people say, well, why do we have reagents on vendors? Well, ultimately, reagents on vendors are meant to be kind of access points for necessary components when crafting or processing that required the village to participate in advancing the world state. And that can serve as a hard gate. It can serve as a soft gate, depending on if there are alternative offerings there, or if there's higher prices, but to achieve the same thing, or it's, offered as a drop elsewhere. But the idea is that players we're going to be working on a portfolio that can be opened and show all like available recipes, what they require to craft what type of bench and building, and a tooltip that talks about, the material components, and you'll be able to track that. We are actually working on that for this milestone. The UI team is working towards, and that's going to severely improve, I believe, the process and the awareness even to the community of like, what do I need to achieve in order to do these things, right? It's like, well, here's some direction, right? You need to kind of get people together to accomplish this. So that's something that we're working on right now based off of player feedback, of course. But ultimately, that is the rhyme and reason to our heavy systems approach, is that all that stuff is interconnected, right? And as a result of being interconnected, they require engagement from the player, and that can serve as a bit of a break point for players who are rushing to progress.
Okay, cool. Because the concern was there's a couple of systems where it feels like you have to just rush to level 50, effectively nullifying all of the wonderful work of getting to 50. Specifically, the concern in one instance is like the freeholds, right? So obviously freeholds are limited, so people would rush to get to 50 just to be able to ensure that they're one of the first to get that freehold.
Right.
So, okay, so we actually, since I see you guys in chat, we had this question already in our list of submissions, but I mean, you guys are asking a lot. And Steven, you recently mentioned that you're a man of RP, and Chad is wondering if there's anything for like role play profiles, anything in the future planned to be able to like mark somebody as a role player or add a backstory into your character sheet, things like that.
Well, there is the concept of the backstory system. We do want to incorporate that. I mean, we already have a little bit of that represented into the character creation experience right now, and we want to be able to display that from a in-game perspective for players who are interested in showing that, and whether that comes through some iconography or that comes through, a location of the character, targeting plate that you can, click on and see a description of. We have a lot of ideas on how to incorporate those things. Okay. We do want to provide players a role play expression platform. That's something that we have always talked about for a long time, especially having character pages even on a web platform where you could look up a particular player character should they want to share those details, have a space where they can share a little bit more about themselves or their character. We've talked about that in the past very early on. Those are things obviously that will come much later, but it is a desire of ours, and just giving players tools to tell their own story, to the whole concept of an MMORPG isn't that you're grinding just to reach an end game and replay these loops. It's that you have a history, you have a reputation, you have a personal character arc that you've created, you have these elements that really define what you are trying to represent in this immersive experience, this role-playing experience. And some players engage with that much more than others, right? With the role players versus the non-role players. And I of course want to be careful about certain systems that might paint a target as well. I've definitely seen in other games where role players can be targeted for that aspect because the PvPers or the more toxic players get a kick out of the responses or whatever. So those things need to be optional. There needs to be a willingness to engage and opt into those types of systems. So we keep that in mind when designing what those systems are going to be. But yes, we want to provide those tools.
Awesome, because I know I had asked at one point if we could get macros, not for the being able to auto click things, but so I could combine maybe my revive with an emote that says, it is not yet your time, adventure, rise once more, or something, as I'm casting that at the same time. Those are my favorite to do in World of Warcraft. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Mine would be a little bit more forceful. It's like, you want to lay around and sleep all day? Get up, soldier!
Yes. There's two types of clerics. No, I'm kidding. We're the same. We approach things differently. We're like, why are you dead? This is your fault.
Don't blame me next time. Get up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. All right, so the next question, Breeze asks, how many artisan buildings and journeyman level benches can be built in T5 nodes?
Oh, that's a great question. I do not know off the top of my head. I know that it's a lot. I know that it's the most, but I am not sure exactly what that value is right now. It's been going through some iteration.
Do you mean you don't remember everything in the world ever?
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I will admit that I do have a relatively good memory, I think, comparatively. But no, I don't remember everything in the world, despite the rumors.
Fair enough. I tried to remember everything one time and it just hurt my head.
I mean, there's a wiki for a reason. Thank you, Lex. We appreciate you.
That is so true. Oh
As PI members, we especially rely on the wiki.
100%.
It's super helpful. So much information, and I forget what's actually been shared before, and what's new potentially. It's nice because he has the little flags. I'm like, oh, there's a 2017 flag. Okay, that's definitely something that's been revisited recently, and I forgot about it. Cool.
If I told you how many times myself or the team have used the wiki to find a comment or a source that I've said something, it's been a lot. We really love that wiki. Lex, you've done a great job on that. I know I tell you that all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so Dune asks, how do you feel the direction and progression of development is going in relation to the original designs or plans that were hatched in the 2017 Kickstarter? And I know recently, I believe on Burns' interview, you mentioned that there was a more idealized version of Steven back then. So I guess this is kind of a good supplement to that question.
Yeah. How do I feel it's going? I think it's going good. I'm happy to see, every milestone we improve our processes internally. We get better definitions and define our path, and our roadmap comes into better clarity when it comes to identifying what it looks like to get to launch. We've had to make pivots, we've had to make changes, we've hit our fair share of snags along the way, as is to be expected with a project of our size and complexity. But the team has risen to the occasion, and we are now in a state where we're up 24/7, minus obviously the downtimes for updates. We have a lot of our core tech that's already in place, the core loops that are in place. We are now on a content push, and we're on a balancing exercise, and we're trying to iterate on what's there, and little by little the outstanding features grow smaller and smaller as we're progressing through the alpha. And I think I watched Lazy Peon's video that he did a few days ago, and I thought to myself, damn, that is a lot of shit that we put into the game in a short amount of time.
Yes.
I'm like,
yes.
I don't think I know any other team out there that's like updating the amount of content and features and changes to a game that's like publicly available, to a testing environment that's publicly available at this pace. I think that is pretty significant. And if I were to use that as a barometer of health and of our process and of our execution, of course there's areas where we need to continue to improve, where we need to inspect and refine, but yeah, I'm happy with the pace and with the success that we've achieved as a group, and I think that players have a lot to be happy for now, because where we are as a project is very different from where we were a year ago, and where we were a year ago was very different from where we were 2 years prior to that. So when I look at the health, obviously, of anything that I'm looking forward to, I look at forward momentum and progress. And right now what I see out of Ashes is a lot of forward momentum and a lot of progress. There are definitely a lot of scrapes and bruises. There's bugs we got to handle, but being in alpha since October has been probably the most positive effect on pushing the game forward that the project has seen yet.
Yeah.
There's no growth without pains.
Yep.
Exactly. And also, I understand, we may not be one-to-one with the outline or the yeah, I'll just say outline that you guys had shared with us for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3,
Yeah,
for
for
example.
sure.
But I mean, for those of us that are here every week, week in, week out, patch in, patch out, for example, it's easy to get lost in the details. And once in a while, when you step back and you look at like how much things have changed in just 6 months, it's ridiculously crazy. I didn't realize this recently until one of our players came back from a break and they're like, so what's changed? And I was like, starting to go through, I was like, actually, you know what? This will just be faster for you. Go check this out.
I think that I think that one thing that is sometimes very difficult to communicate, and it's because this is human nature. We hear the things we want and we forget the things we don't want to hear. And, with the updates that we've always provided, we talk about things that are a work in progress. We talk about things that are subject to change. We talk about, development being a moving train. And I will oftentimes get a ping in a Discord or a comment on a YouTube and it says, but you said this, this, and this. And I was like, yes, we did. But we also said that could change.
Right.
And we always forget that, like, the fear that developers in our industry have, that publishers, especially in our industry, have, the people who fund these types of projects, is not going down this path of open development, because ultimately every single development in the world changes their plans. They have to react. And that truth becomes more when you're dealing with a project of this size. So It's one thing to say, we're going to have an open development process on a mobile game or on a, single player RPG or, on a, an ARPG or whatever, right? Like that's one thing. But an MMO of this intricacy and complexity, like if you walk away from any update live stream where I tell you what our plans are, and you do not walk away with the understanding expressly that those plans could change based off of unknown unknowns, based off of problems that might take resources away from it, based off of redesigns that might occur. I mean, the biggest, best, brightest companies in the world have restarted their projects years into it, have canceled greenlit projects years before release. And we have to remember that that's our industry. We are in a creative atmosphere. We cannot give you a roadmap or schedule that we can say we're going to stick to 100% or even perhaps 80%. If a team's operating at 80% accuracy, I would consider that a stellar team, especially on a project like this. So it's partly a responsibility of our community and the content creators out there to remind individuals who are following this project during its development phase that everything is subject to change and we cannot predict the whims of development. Things will happen.
Yeah, and I want to add just a quick caveat. Like we've been following a couple of other indie games as well in development and in inclusion with Ashes, and Ashes is not the only one that has a roadmap that was released and that they weren't one-to-one with the entire time.
For sure.
So it's very normal, I would say, as Chad is pointing out with Final Fantasy 14, for example.
I've had a roadmap in real life and I've still gotten lost and had to remake the map I had to follow to get to where I'm going. So maps are that. They're meant to be followed, but you're not always going to follow exactly the right turn.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Alrighty.
All right. Now, I think if you're super fast, we might be able to squeeze in one more, but
I wanted to do the rapid fire.
That's
rapid
what,
fire?
so we
All
have
right.
time for that. Yeah. Do you want to just cut to that one then?
Yeah. Okay. So
Okay.
speed round.
Hold on, let me get my dinger ready for people.
Get the ding ready. All right.
We have this. Just FYI, we're gonna ask Steven to answer in 1 to 2 questions, sentences maximum. This is the sound I'll play when he's
If he's
reached
gone
his
over
3
his
sentences.
allotted time.
Okay.
And we're just gonna move on to the next question.
Wait,
Don't
what is?
worry,
I didn't
Steven's-
hear the sound. What is the sound?
Oh, it's on Discord only, but I'll just do a ding ding with it.
Okay.
I'll tell you. But
Ding,
we asked Steven's permission ahead of time because we thought it'd be kind of funny to throw this one in there.
There you go, Chibi. Now you can practice your voice acting skills. Do the little
To be
buzzer.
fair, I don't know what any of the questions are. So if I just say I
Yeah.
can't answer something, I'll just say I can't answer it.
That's fine. We'll move on to the next one.
Okay. All right.
So, in the spirit of the split of the gods, we have 10 minutes to answer 7 questions with a 3-sentence maximum response.
Ooh,
Question number 1. Keyboard Oracle asks, will there be donkey cart mounts?
donkey cart mounts. What does that mean? What's a donkey cart mount?
Oh,
A mount that's a donkey cart. Like
That's just a
a little
you have
cart
the
with a
mules,
donkey?
I think, but yeah.
No, there will not be donkey cart mounts.
Okay, that's a tongue twister.
So, yeah, right. All right,
There are
Kingfish
mules.
asks.
Just to be clear, there are mules, but
Yes.
not donkey cart mounts.
Yeah, I think it would be
Okay,
more of a
cool.
mule leading a thing behind it. So Kingfish asks, if we become ash when we die, where did skeletons come from?
Ooh, they were creatures not granted the blessing of Verra.
Ooh,
Okay. Straightforward.
Fair.
All right. Now Breeze asks, will vassalization always be selected automatically, or will there ever be player agency involved?
Automatically.
Okay. And
Is-
Kiske asks, will there be other ways for nodes to fall other than from sieges?
Potentially, but not before launch.
Okay.
Okay.
Ooh, interesting. A peek way in the future. All right. Regis 28 asks, in animal husbandry, will cosmetic variants include exceptionally rare cases of things like albinism or melanism, or will they be limited towards more subtle differences?
We have talked about very, very rare big differences that can occur, and that is a goal for husbandry.
Ooh,
All right.
okay.
Dolium asks, is the reason mages are currently able to detect stealth due to Steven mainly playing mages in MMORPGs, and as a result likely having a deep-seated hatred for rogues ganking him throughout his MMORPG career?
No, but I do have a deep-seated hatred for rogues killing me. Rogues and archers, to be fair.
Okay, fair.
All right. And the last one, Lloyd asks, given your busy schedule, have you found time to secretly play Ashes for yourself outside of trying to spy on guilds or do any kind of testing or creative director related tasks? Just literally flitter.
I haven't yet on the live phase 3 environment other than some GM work. But I do intend to very soon, once we're out of the more critical react and adapt phase, post the phase 3 launch. Unfortunately, I am just inundated, along with many in the team, throughout the week and on the weekend. Many hours a day where I just don't have the time that I would want to devote to playing. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't play the game in a testing scenario, right? We oftentimes have play tests internally where we're testing very specific features or very specific content. Oh, sorry. Yeah, my bad. Too calm.
I was going to say, for a minute there, it was a really good run-on sentence. It sounded like there were definitely commas in there and not periods or exclamation points. But then I heard a period and it had to buzz you.
Okay. If you're okay with it, Vertec, because we reached through all of our stuff, there's a couple in chat that I want to grab real quick to add to our, because we still have like 4 minutes to add to our speed round.
Okay, go for it. Speed round.
Okay. Light asks, please will we get duels soon?
I am trying my best to get duels snuck in somehow to the November deliverable, but don't quote me on that. If it isn't, it will for sure be in the next milestone.
Okay. The next question is, who's the best PvPer in the dev team?
The best PvPer on the dev team? Ooh. Can I take the fifth on that? I feel like if I give you that answer, I will be creating a dilemma for myself.
Ooh.
Okay, fair.
Oh,
fair.
wait, I know. I am. I'm the best PvPer.
There you go.
There you go.
The one semi-safe answer, though many people will probably try to prove you wrong.
Oh my gosh, that's
Good
funny.
luck.
Let's see. Would PvP have a similar to Dark Age of Camelot, where developing this realm rank would benefit your character and also make you want PvP? I guess like make you crave PvPing. The dark side. Crave the blood.
We had talked about. Well, wait, hold on. Rephrase that question. How say it one more time?
They said, would PvP have a similar system to Dark Age of Camelot, where developing this realm rank would benefit your character and also make you want PvP?
Probably not the want PvP part of it, but we do want to have leaderboards that players can use to obviously peacock their achievements.
Okay.
And that could be something that's seasonal, so you're always trying to achieve, the top dog spot.
I think you mean PCAT.
Awesome.
I think you mean PCAT.
Yes,
Oh,
the PCAT
yes,
one,
PCAT.
after all.
PCAT.
And then I have one final one that Vertec wants to ask. Do you have any other ideas for crossovers besides the obvious orphan cave that we talked about when you were first on our podcast?
Oh, crossover events. Things like, say, working with a PC manufacturer to get Ashes themed stuff. Displate and doing Ashes type stuff there. Not just working with other game IPs or anything.
I know that Maggie has a lot of great ideas on that front, as does Brian.
Okay.
So it is definitely something that's on our mind and that we have plans for. I just am not entirely privy to what they are quite yet. They're not ready for my review.
Secrets from the Steven. How dare they?
Yes.
I know.
Well, no,
I know.
please delegate. Oh my God, for the love of Christ, have as many secrets as you want, as long as you're handling it.
All right. Well, I think we have, as much as I hate to cut this stuff off, I think we have 2 minutes before we hit the end of our allotted time, and I don't want to get Maggie upset at us, and we want to get you over to your important team meetings and such. But Sir Steven, do you have anything else that you would like to just say to the community, just random, anything that you feel that you need to just take a mention of?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think obviously thank you for having me. I really enjoy having these conversations, especially with our most intimate content creators and communities that we have that are participating in this testing phase for Ashes. When I think about why I started Intrepid and why I went on this journey to begin with, it was because ultimately as a player I felt that the games we were seeing in this genre weren't kind of servicing our desires and what we want. And I keep that at the top of my mind every day when I go to a meeting or when I go to work and when I see, the hardworking developers that we have on our team that are looking to deliver on Ashes. And I would just say that it is a source of fuel when we have a community that is behind us, cheering us to succeed. It is a big motivation that we have that drives us to deliver, that keeps us, awake when the late nights can come. There are obviously times where the community might be disappointed in the outcome of a particular feature or piece of content, or that a bug might not get fixed. But remember that ultimately, if your goal is the same as ours, which is to deliver on the vision that is Ashes of Creation, the best thing that we can do as a group, as a community, is to ensure that the people working the late nights to deliver on this promise are being supported in a way that is most conducive to a successful outcome. And that means, not necessarily remaining positive or not saying the criticisms, but making sure that when we do that, we're constructive in it and that we are respectful and that we are inviting even strangers to this community, because as we continue to progress, that audience is going to eventually get wider and wider and wider. And the more polite and inviting and camaraderie that we can see within the community that's available is going to be the precedent we want to set for the type of environment that players can expect when they enter Ashes of Creation. And if you see people who in the community that are not doing that, remind them of ultimately what their goals are and if it aligns with ours. And if that's the case, let's evaluate what the right approach is to ultimately achieve those goals. So a huge thank you, I think, to you guys for being, I think, a very positive role model in setting that example from the content creation side and fostering a community that holds those ideals dear. And I think that, we as a larger community can look to that and say, that's the example that's going to help drive this home. And let's all participate in that. But we're very thankful for the patience, for the support, for the continued engagement that we have on the feedback side of things from our community, and are always appreciative of joining us on this journey, because it is a hell of a journey.
Thank you. That means a lot for us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I wanted to say, like, that is something Vertec and I push really hard for, is when we give any sort of feedback, we make sure it's constructive and as helpful as we possibly can. And I'm really glad to hear that Intrepid really appreciates that, and to hear that from you specifically. So thank you.
We do very often.
It's been a wonderful time of like the last 8 years following this project, and I'm very excited to see where it goes.
We aren't even there. We're nowhere near there. We're ready. Let's get this thing on the road. Very excited about it. I'm excited to see November, honestly, with the Harbingers, and as we talked about the features that are there, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see the players engage with that. So
yeah,
this month's live stream I think is going to be fun.
Absolutely.
And thank you to our awesome people hanging in with us. Thank you. I'm trying not to.
No, yeah. Did you want to say anything else there, TB?
I just want to say it's an honor having you on again, and I'm apologizing that my branchlers are deciding to deflate. I just thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come on. It's been a complete honor being included in, I mean, not only you coming onto our podcast twice at this point, but including us in your AMAs that you've held previously. And I just, amazing questions, and thank you for always being so genuine. And you told us at the beginning, before we went live, that it's okay to ask any questions, and you would just let us know if we couldn't. So that makes us feel really amazing, and I hope that we can continue to be there for you guys as well.
Absolutely. Love it. Always would love to join you guys on this show and answer your guys' question and your community's questions. As I said, you're part of what makes the community special. And we of course appreciate that on our side.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I think we'll, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, finish.
I was gonna say, I think we can raid over to Portini, because we're having him on actually next week for our guest.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, we're gonna get Portini on next as our guest. And everybody, as always, thank you so very much for being here, spending your time with us. As you know, if you've been here before, time is your most valuable asset. Once you get it, you can only spend it once. You've spent it here. We really hope it's been worthwhile. The same goes for you, Steven. You spent your time here. You've given us extra time.
Yes.
We were tipped in extra time, and that is amazing. So
yes,
we love it. We love you all. Everybody, please have yourselves a great day, and enjoy Porcini's stream. He's a fantastic person as well.
Yes.
Okay,
nice seeing you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.